Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator. As always, joined in by Dayton Reimer and Peter Baracchini. We took a little bit of a break after the draft to kind of reset, and we're in the offseason now. It's pretty much the dog days of the offseason. Not much happening. There's a few trades that have happened. Dakota Joshua getting traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs today. Cap dump. I'm not really happy about it, but he's not a prospect, so we won't go too much into that. But it's a fourth round pick. But I mean, he's still a really good player, and I wish him luck in Toronto. But Peter, how's it going?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that news, I was really happy that we got Dakota Joshua. It kind of fits the bill of what the Maple Leafs want to change with their DNA. But like you said, that's an NHL move. We're talking prospects here with the trades. You know what? Like you said, it's the dog days. Everything's a little bit quiet with the chatter and everything, but still plenty of prospect talk all around with the trades, prospect systems, pipelines, all that.
For sure. Yeah, we'll be doing a bit more of that throughout the offseason. And maybe doing some redrafts too, because it's always fun to look back at different drafts over the years and see what could be now. But Dayton, how's it going?
Also pretty good. Yeah. Like you mentioned, it's the dog days. I took a little mental break, I guess, after the draft. Had a little bit of, I checked in for free agency because you have to. It's too good not to. But yeah, it's been nice to kind of relax a little bit. And now we're getting back into it. I'm already doing some research on the NCAA, so we can chat about that a little bit later. Probably today. But yeah, no, it's been good.
Yeah, I mean, there's still stuff to talk about. Prospects are always, obviously they're not playing, but development camps just wrapped up not that long ago. So, there's lots of stuff to talk about some of the prospects. But we're going to start talking about, in this episode, we're going to go through some of the trades that have happened in the offseason so far and talk about Gavin McKenna because he did choose to go to Penn State. As we were talking about the NCAA or going back to the WHL, he chose the former, going to college rather than staying in the dub. We're also going to do some underrated prospects, do a bit of a series throughout the next few weeks, going through the divisions, just talking about some guys that don't really get the spotlight, maybe within the teams, but not maybe in the NHL itself. But we're going to go through that as well. So let's start with the trades. There's not been a lot of them, but there have been some notable ones and some prospects that have been drafted not that long ago. And the most recent one was Sam O'Reilly getting traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning for Isaac Howard. Howard's been in the rumors. Really didn't want to sign with the Lightning out of college, so they chose to deal him to the Edmonton Oilers for a pretty good prospect. Sam O'Reilly has been really good for the London Knights. He was drafted at the later part of the first round, and the Oilers got a first round pick to get him. So. Isaac Howard was the first round pick too. So I'll start with you, Peter. What do you think about this trade? I mean, we've talked about both these guys on this show, the draft year, plus, in the systems. Was this just because Isaac Howard just didn't want to be with the Lightning? And obviously they got a pretty good prospect in return.
Yeah, a little column A, a little column B kind of thing. Obviously, Howard probably didn't see himself in the future with the Tampa Bay Lightning organization. So, best bet is to probably put himself with probably the two best players in the league right now. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So he's got I wouldn't say there's a lot of pressure on him, but you got to talk a big game if you want to play alongside McDavid and Draisaitl. You got to put up those numbers kind of too. He's been in the collegiate, the NCAA for about around 3 years now, had a Hobey Baker winning type season, 52 points in 37 games with Michigan State. Great numbers, but when you look at past history of Hobey Baker winners that go into the NHL to have success, it's kind of very minimal. And I think the one name that kind of sticks out, I think there was a long list, but I think one of them was just Johnny Gaudreau that really had a lot of success. And I think that this is a deal that could work out in Edmonton's favor because you're getting a young player, you're getting a high up-tempo offensive dynamo. He's got speed. He's got a shot. And that's basically what McDavid and or Draisaitl needs, is another guy to put the puck in the back of the net. Now, obviously, there's some concerns, because of that age factor, because of the fact that, he didn't quite have the great first few seasons. He kind of popped off and was very productive late on his career. Is that going to translate to the next level? That's the big question mark. You would hope that when he's playing alongside Draisaitl and or McDavid, probably McDavid most likely, but you got to take that with a grain of salt. You got to see the results and see how well he progresses. And it's a deal that they really need. They need more of a high offensive kind of guy. I mean, they kind of had that with Dylan Holloway, but we all know what happened there. And, I think they could have they were probably better off for it, because Sam O'Reilly's more of a middle six, two-way center kind of player. They needed more depth on the wing. They needed a little bit more scoring. You don't know if you're going to get that with O'Reilly. So in the end, it's a good deal for the Oilers, definitely, but it does bring a lot of concerns as well.
Dayton, what do you think about this trade? I mean, I think it was you and I that talked about O'Reilly not that long ago. In the Memorial Cup, and he was really good for the London Knights there. What do you think about this trade for both sides?
Yeah, I think, I'll be a little bit more definitive than Peter. I think this is a huge win for Edmonton. Isaac Howard is a Hobey Baker winner. There's not a lot of guys who win the Hobey Baker and then go on to not be NHL, at least solid NHL players. Maybe you don't get an all-star, but you are getting a player. Sam O'Reilly is a solid player as well. He's a good defensive center. I think he's a center.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I doubted myself better. I've been looking at too many names today. But I don't know if he is – I don't think he's a top six player. I think he probably tops out as a third-line defensive center. He had 71 points, 28 goals in the regular season last season, along with 22 playoff points. That's very good. He was a key member in the Memorial Cup win. But I remember thinking that he shouldn't have been a first-round pick. I thought that was a bit of a reach by the Oilers. And turning that into Isaac Howard, who was definitely supposed to be a first-round pick and dropped to the last pick of the first round. A huge win. They have somebody now who can potentially slide into the second line spot in the future.
Maybe even this season. There has been talk, right? So, I mean, he could. Play with, like you said, Peter, talking about playing with McDavid or Draisaitl, and he's got the skill to do it. And the personality. I mean, I remember his draft came out with the white suit, was it?
Turtleneck too.
Yeah, the turtleneck. Yeah, I mean, he's got a personality. So I mean, I think he'll end up being a fan favorite as well. So good trade. And again, Lightning, they seem to do well. I mean, O'Reilly could be a future Cirelli type player, third line guy that chips in occasionally offensively and is just really good at defensive forward. So I think for both sides, it's probably a bit of a win-win, but I do agree with you, Dayton, with that. I think the Oilers won the trade for upside. I think Howard's got a lot more offensive upside to his game. All right, moving to my neck of the woods, and Arturs Silovs, who was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Chase Stillman, and a fourth-round pick. But and this wasn't received well in Vancouver. Silovs was, of course, he helped the Abbotsford Canucks win the Calder Cup, and also was the playoff MVP as well. So he put a lot of hardware, and he's going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Biggest thing was that he just didn't have a spot in Vancouver at all anymore. And because Demko and Lankin are going to be here for the next 4 seasons, he doesn't, he's at least should be a backup. And in Pittsburgh, he will be. The return, Chase Stillman, we, of course, talked about him on this show during his draft year, and ended up being a first-round pick. He hasn't been doing too much in his pro career yet. But that draft year was just, it's hard to judge these prospects because it was a COVID draft, one of them. And I think maybe he's been a bit slower his development. So Dayton, I'll start with you. What do you think about this this trade? I mean, it's tough to gauge value for goaltenders, especially a guy that really hasn't had a lot of success in the NHL. Yes, he won a series in the playoffs and was really good. But overall, he hasn't really established himself as an NHL goaltender. So I don't know what everyone's expecting to get in return. But what do you think about this trade?
I think it's a good bet on Pittsburgh, who are trying to not really rebuild, but more so retool on the fly. It doesn't feel like they've fully committed to it. Their GM, Kyle Dubas, is pretty good at stripping down quickly and getting a lot of value back. And I think he got a lot of value for a player who hasn't really worked out in the NHL so far. Like we said, it's Chase Stillman was a first-round pick by the Devils. Didn't really work out there. He had a decent first season in Utica, and then was moved for, can I remember off the top of my head? John Gruden and I forgot the other guy. It was two minor prospects, which ended up turning out okay. And Stillman didn't have a lot of success in Pittsburgh either. Just didn't really work out. So he'll get a third chance in Vancouver. Yeah, it's a good bet. You know, he has upside. It's just, will it translate? And now Pittsburgh has a guy who they can rely on when Jari inevitably gets injured, because that's kind of what he does. But, you know, it's good bets without a lot of risk, I think, on both sides. So it's tough to really call a loser, but if I'm going to call a winner, it's going to be Pittsburgh. Sure.
And Peter, what do you think about this one? I mean, I think the backlash, everyone's kind of maybe expecting a bit more because of how well, you know, how much Silovs everyone thought he increased his stock in the trade market by how he played in the playoffs there in the AHL. Do you think this return was what the Canucks were going to get? Or could they have gotten more?
Felt like Vancouver could have gotten just a little bit more because of what Silovs has done to try and establish himself as a top goaltending prospect and be, you know, a heavily relied goaltender in the future. I mean, we saw what he did at that World Championships. That's where he solidified himself and put himself on the map. Then you see the, you know, Calder Cup run that he had with the, you know, Abbotsford Canucks, and obviously rightfully so. Very impressive, and it's one that's going to get a lot of attention because of that. I mean, you know, he was the playoff MVP for a reason. He backstopped them to a championship, and, you know, that's something that's going to catch a lot of teams' eyes, and it's definitely something that the Pittsburgh is definitely willing to take the chance on because of the fact that they need goaltending. I mean, this past season, Tristan Jarry and Joel Blomqvist as your tandem was very underwhelming throughout the whole entire season. And I'm just going to point out that the Pittsburgh Penguins had the third most goals against per game with 3.50. And you look at the teams ahead of them, San Jose and Chicago, definitely have goaltending problems themselves. So I think getting Silovs as that potential starter, because I think as soon as Demko put pen to ink on that little 3-year extension, I think that ultimately solidified his fate in Vancouver, where he wasn't going to get that opportunity. So might as well give him the opportunity elsewhere, kind of like Askarov going to San Jose. Then again, Askarov is on a little bit more of a different playing field than Silovs, but it's a bit, I agree with Dayton. This is a big bet and possibly a big win for the Penguins if it does pay off, because, you know, he does have the size. He has the accolades. Now it's just trying to establish himself at the next level. That could be really important for them. Again, a little bit of a risk, kind of like the whole Isaac Howard thing for me, but it's one that definitely has a good payoff, kind of like Howard as well.
Agreed. I mean, I would have liked Silovs to be in Vancouver, but yeah, like you said, Demko gets that extension, and I mean, as the writing was on the wall. I mean, he was going to get claimed on waivers because he would have had to clear waivers. Canucks aren't going to keep 3 goaltenders all season. They're not trading Lankinen. Not trading Demko because they just signed him. So, I mean, it was just, those are the 2 guys, and they feel more comfortable. I mean, obviously, these are 2 established NHL goaltenders. Then making a bet on Silovs being one of them. So, I mean, ultimately, I mean, Chase Stillman is a really good, I think he's going to end up being a 3rd, 4th line type, grinder, high motor guy. It was funny because I wrote his prospect profile. I did not know it at the time. When he was traded, I'm like, oh, I remember that name from somewhere. I looked at it. I'm like, oh, I wrote his prospect profile. So that kind of was like, oh, I know who this guy is. So, I mean, I don't know what he's going to turn out to be, but he could end up being a good high motor type checking line type guy. And I mean, if he ends up being just an NHL player, I mean, that's a pretty good trade then. All right, moving to another high profile prospect, really. I mean, Thomas Bordeleau was one of the Sharks' top prospects for a while. He's traded to the New Jersey Devils for Shane Bowers. Peter, I'll start with you. What do you think about this one? I mean, I don't know if there was a point where Bordeleau was actually talked about as being a core player with the Sharks at one point. They just keep adding high-end guys. So maybe it was just pushed out. But what do you think about this one?
Yeah, it definitely kind of feels like one of those like B prospect for B prospect kind of thing. Obviously, San Jose is already got their core in place. They already got their big guys. Obviously, maybe Bordeleau could have played a complementary role unless, the New Jersey Devils kind of still see him as a little bit more of a higher upside kind of prospect. But for Shane Bowers too, like he's just a prospect that has kind of fallen off, hasn't quite made the jump just yet. And maybe the San Jose Sharks kind of feel the same way with Bordeleau. So it's kind of like one of those like, change of scenery kind of things, but it's not even a high-end prospect for a high-end prospect kind of deal. Just kind of seems like one of those middle type moves where it's just, try to get something out of it for both sides.
Yeah, agreed. Bordeleau, I think he was at one point one of the Sharks' top prospects, but then, you had so many other guys, he just kept getting pushed down. Dane, you agree with that? Is that what Bordeleau's kind of been? He's more of a B prospect getting traded. What do you think his upside is with New Jersey now?
Yeah, I think a B prospect is probably good. Upside? He was a really intriguing prospect in the what year was he drafted? 2020? I think. Yes. So,
yeah.
I think we were talking about him as a potential first rounder. He falls to the second. He does have a lot of upside. I don't know if a lot of that upside remains anymore. He might be more of a decent, maybe middle six energy player. He's got a lot of speed. He's getting looks in the NHL. Have to see. It's a good bet on the Devils, I think. Going the other way, Shane Bowers, I don't know if he's an NHL player anymore. It feels like he's been around forever. I was actually surprised that he's only 25.
Yeah.
Seeing as I, cover the Senators, I talk about him and think about him semi-frequently and how the Senators shouldn't have picked him. That was a bad pick. He was too much of a safe option in the first round. I think he should have been a second rounder. And now he's on his third team or fourth team already. I think he's an AHL player at this point. So personally, I'm not sure why San Jose makes this trade unless they really don't think Bordeleau can push for an NHL spot, at least before his contract runs out. It's interesting. I'm not quite sure the thought process there. I guess the one thought is he is at the end of his contract, right? He needs a new deal. He's an RFA currently. Maybe negotiations just weren't progressing and they decided to call it and get something. And Shane Bowers is something.
Again, Bordeleau drafted in the 2020 draft, which was the first COVID draft, was postponed a ton, went into October when it took place. So, I mean, these were all interesting, these two drafts. I mean, any of these prospects in it, it's kind of interesting to see what their development is. Bordeleau hasn't really caught on in the NHL. He's had some flashes, but we'll see what he does in New Jersey. All right, this is moving on to our probably the biggest trade involving a prospect. This is the Keandre Miller trade. Scott Morrow traded to the Rangers. He was part of that trade. Dayton, what do you think about Morrow? I mean, he was with the Hurricanes for a while, and he finally got into the NHL there for a bit. Looked at as some promise. I would say he's probably wasn't a throw-in in this trade. Obviously, there was a first-round pick involved, but he's the big piece of the Keandre Miller trade. What do you think his role will be with the Rangers? Will he be? First of all, is he worth being in this trade?
Oh, certainly he's worth being in. The Rangers got rid of a very good defenseman who kind of, I don't know how to put it. It's not like his welcome ran out, but I think his desire to be involved with that team ran out, maybe is a good way to say that. Mm-hmm. And so he was looking for something new, and they get a guy who could potentially fill in his spot, just kind of on the opposite side. Miller, of course, left shot. Morrow is a right shot. Both of those guys are second pairing, maybe fringe first pairing guys at their top. Morrow has a ton of offensive potential. Speaking of guys who you forget that you wrote their draft profile, I wrote. I remember talking about him, maybe a year ago on this podcast, and completely skipped my mind that I had scouted and researched this kid. And I gave him an 8 out of 10 for offense, comparing him to Tyson Barrie. So, like, this kid is a player. He has really good potential. He looked really good in his first few games. He played 14 with Carolina the last season. I think the Rangers did very well to get this guy in the trade, and then a couple of first picks, a first pick and a second pick. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do with the Rangers. We'll just see what the Rangers can be, because man, they had a rough season.
Yeah.
when everyone was expecting them to be like, one of the competing teams, it was like, oh, they're, been praising their rebuild, and they did it on the fly. It was great. And then they collapsed.
Yeah.
Shesterkin couldn't stop a beach ball, it seemed, for a moment. And I had him in several of my hockey pools, so that sucked.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. I've been there too.
Yeah.
Overall, I think, it sounded like Miller was on his way out. So, getting Scott Morrow in there, I think he's one of the Hurricanes' top prospects at the time, and they've got quite a few now again. Peter, anything else to add about Morrow going to the Rangers?
Nothing really that Dayton hasn't covered. I just think it's also worthwhile to note that you kind of alleviate some of that pressure on Adam Fox for the future, where he's just the one go-to offensive producer. Everyone else is kind of like that, two-way shutdown, defensive-minded kind of player. Miller kind of fits that role. Braden Schneider kind of fits that role. You need a little bit more balance, especially with him, with his mobility, with his speed, with his size. I think he can handle that very well. And he had a phenomenal rookie season, especially in the AHL too. He's only one of two players that hit double digits in the American Hockey League as a rookie, and the other was only Luca Cagnoni. So, very impressive campaign. And the fact that he even got in those games later on in the season, the fact that he was a little bit productive, kind of sits well with the Rangers, where maybe you got a guy that could come into the lineup sooner rather than later and provide a little bit more of some offensive flair. And, with Mike Sullivan as the coach right now, I think that's going to go well for his development, where he has seen offensive-minded defenders and has coached them in the past, kind of like a Chris Letang, not comparing the two by any means, but he's dealt with them. So I think he knows how to utilize those players a little bit more, and I think that's going to get the most out of Morrow for the future.
Yeah, I agree. And I've always liked Morrow as a defenseman. I know all these trades, and whenever Canucks rumors and stuff with trades, and Morrow was, I believe, one of when I think it was Pettersson, Miller, one of those guys were rumored to go to the Hurricanes. I'm like, Morrow should be in the deal. He's been one of my favorite guys. I think the Rangers did really well to get him in this trade for sure. All right. Speaking of my favorite players, I know, Peter, this guy is also one of your favorite guys. It's Gavin Brindley getting traded to the Colorado Avalanche for Miles Wood, Charlie Coyle. I mean, Colorado, I think we were just dumping these two guys. But I mean, getting Gavin Brindley, that's a pretty good return. So Peter, what do you think about this trade? I mean, Brindley, I know both of us. I think Dayton, you were on the boat too. One of our favorite players in that draft class. So the 2023 draft class, and drafted in the second round, which I thought he probably should have been a first rounder. Very early second round though. Yeah. What do you think about this trade?
Considering that their prospect pool was probably the worst in the league or one of the worst in the league, and you gave up Callum Ritchie in the process for Brock Nelson, which I still absolutely hate as a trade, and one that I said that if you trade for Brock Nelson, you're probably going to regret it. And I'm pretty sure Colorado's regretting that right now, letting Callum Ritchie go. And you're basically cuffed because then you signed Brock Nelson. You had Charlie Coyle that wasn't happy. So you kind of felt like there was not going to be a decent enough return, but I was wrong. Gavin Brindley is a very good, decent return. Now, is he at the caliber of Callum Ritchie where he's a centerman? No, but he's a very strong, energetic, and highly skilled winger where, he's got that edge. He's got that speed. He can cut and then, put defenses on their heels. I really like this move for Colorado, considering one or two things. You got another top prospect and a top player in return, but still kind of fills that need where you need a little bit more. But to get rid of those players for a high-end player that could probably come into the lineup right now and serve as a decent third-line option, could move up, could have the speed to keep up with some of the other guys as well in the lineup. But yeah, considering I hated the Callum Ritchie trade, I really like this move for Colorado. So yeah, decent pickup with Gavin Brindley.
Yeah, Brindley's got he has one NHL game under his belt into 2023-24 season. Didn't get into the NHL last season, but had 17 points in 52 games. I mean, not crazy stats, but I think he's going to still end up being an NHL player. And for the Avalanche, I mean, we'll see if he gets in NHL games this year. But Dayton, what do you think about Brindley going to the Avalanche? What do you see as future there?
Really solid addition. I agree with everything that Peter said. He's a very exciting player. Probably shouldn't have gotten rid of Cal Ritchie for Brock Nelson.
Yep.
Yeah. Something I also agree with. So this is a nice way to get back some value for guys who, you had to get rid of anyways. So I think Colorado has such a deep lineup right now. He might have some chances to get in, but it might be more of an AHL season. And that wouldn't be the worst. He still needs some time to get more familiar with the pro game. He played his rookie season, the AHL last season, 17 points, 52 games. That's a solid start, but you'd want to hope for, a little bit more from a guy who was almost guaranteed to be a first round pick until he wasn't. I was looking back on some rankings. Only one ranking had him outside of the first round, and that was Craig Button. He had him 40th overall, which was the closest out of anybody.
Yeah.
Which is, that's interesting. Good pickup. I hope he sneaks into some games this season. I think he is another middle six winger with a lot of energy, a lot of skill, and on Colorado, that's another really good player to have.
Ultimately, I think he's still going to end up being Connor Garland in his prime. So we'll have to watch how he develops in Colorado. I'll be watching him because one of my favorite prospects to watch and to follow. So yeah, Brindley going. I mean, the Avalanche is not. I just hope that he doesn't do a lot when they play the Canucks. I always do. So we'll see how it all goes. All right, let's talk about a future prospect for whatever team finishes last next season or around there. And that's Gavin McKenna, another Gavin. So he, of course, is going to Penn State instead of Medicine Hat. Unfortunately, Dayton, you will not watch him in WHL this season. So whoever watched him last season got a treat because you won't see him again. So Dayton, what do you think about Gavin McKenna choosing that route? Gets paid a lot of money to go to Penn State, $700,000, I believe it is, when you're looking at complete package there. Overall, your thoughts, reaction, initial reaction to when that happened. There was rumors that he was going to do it, but when it officially came down, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think the best way to sum it up is just sadness. He was going to be the face of the Tigers for next season. Everyone knew he was going to the NHL after that. He was projected to be the first pick, probably following in the footsteps of someone like Connor Bedard, with that generational tag thrown on quite liberally. He now leaves the Tigers in a really tough spot. And as someone who grew up just outside of Medicine Hat and watched the Tigers as a kid, that hurts. That to see a team with that much history and that much time that they gave to someone's development, right? They brought that kid up as soon as they possibly could. Mm-hmm. And they now don't have that to build on. That is a huge gap now. Like, they were going to be Memorial Cup threats again. Mm-hmm. Now they are looking at hopefully making the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And for a team that put so much into developing that, mind you, they lost Caden Lindstrom and there was a few others.
I believe they also lost Ryder Ritchie too.
Ryder Ritchie, that's what it is. I was going to say Andrew Basha, but I didn't think he was going. So they now have basically an entire top line gone with nothing in return. At least when the Saskatoon Blades, a team that I cover, lost a lot of their players, they were able to then recoup a lot of assets, trading Tanner Mollendijk for some young guys who are now going to be core members for this coming season, and trading some other guys for some really, really good young players. The Tigers didn't get that chance, and that sucks. I wish Gavin the best in his season, but I also kind of hold a grudge because he did not give his team that did pay a lot in his development a good chance at rebounding from that.
Agreed. And the thing is, you can't fault him for going that route. It's now an option. It wasn't before for anyone that went for CHL. And the money's a big thing. University, of course, is another big thing. So, we don't know his thought process of why he decided to do this. But yeah, I do agree with that. It is tough losing a guy like that you've put in so much. One season is not, a couple. He did play 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, a couple seasons is still not enough for a guy that's now going to probably do crazy. He's not going to do the crazy points, obviously, in the NCAA. They did in the dub. But yeah, it's going to be fun to watch what he does in the NCAA, but it is sad to see him leave the WHL for sure. Peter, what are your reaction to McKenna going? And we've talked a lot about him in the last 2 seasons, much more than I think anyone that hasn't been drafted yet. What do you think about it?
Yeah, when you look at his breakdown, 244 points in 133 games in the WHL, that's... Yeah. And we're not talking about guys that are at the end of their junior career wanting to seek another opportunity to improve their development and everything like that. This is a number 1 caliber generational talent prospect making the jump. And this is the fallout that you're seeing between this CHL NCAA agreement right now, where, this is a guy that was going to light up and put up 150 points probably this season if he was still in the WHL. I do feel like, for some of these players that are making that jump right now, like a Gavin McKenna, like a Keaton Verhoff, Jackson Smith, Cole Reshny, all these guys making that jump, it is a little bit more of a challenge for them. And I think these guys are up to the task. But now you're going to go, now the CHL is possibly going to lose out on notoriety with the names that they have, revenue possibly, because a lot of these top players, teams are going to be at the lower end of the standings. Are they going to sell enough tickets, merch, what have you? You're starting to see that trickle down effect possibly come through the future. And there are a lot of people that, love junior hockey. And if they're not going to, Dayton can attest to that, being fans of these junior teams, seeing these players grow up and develop, that's going to be a huge mark left on the team right now. Right. So yeah, big impact loss. And I agree. Like, this is definitely good for all these players, including McKenna. But again, you're seeing that fallout and the thing of what could have been. And initially we thought that, this is a good opportunity for some players to improve their development. It was because of that whole CHL barrier where they couldn't make the jump to the AHL. So they needed another outlet if the CHL was too much of a challenge or too much of a cakewalk for them, basically. Now you're seeing that isn't quite the case right now. And that is becoming a problem. And I think they needed to address that sooner, or maybe try to get and I think the WHL does this a little bit sooner. They draft players earlier, and I think other leagues, including the OHL and Q, may need to try and address that just in case they do run into this problem as well.
Yeah, I will add, I'm not too worried about junior teams making money after this.
Fair enough, yeah.
Speaking mainly as someone who is mostly familiar with the WHL, there are people who wear jerseys with names I have never heard of before on them. And it's awesome. Like, I remember going to a Warriors game and there were people wearing jerseys with players I didn't think played for the Warriors. Like, I'd never seen those names before, ever. But they were local heroes because that's what you get with junior stars. You get players who just kind of become one with the town for 3-4 years, and then they go. Fans are more than used to that. And yes, it does super suck that McKenna, who was potentially going to be one of the most exciting players in hockey next year, leaves for a new opportunity and doesn't get a chance to, have that farewell tour that Bedard had. He was selling out arenas literally everywhere. Getting tickets for those games was nearly impossible. So you miss out on that, yes, but you're still going to sell tickets. There's guys who have been going to junior games for decades, and they're not going to stop because one guy thought he was. No, I'm not going to say that. Because one guy took an opportunity that was given to him. That's all it was, right? The CHL will be fine. They will make adjustments to make sure that they can best equip the players heading out, and they can kind of, offer something outside of this NIL money, because let's be real,
a little more enticing. Maybe they can probably start paying their own players.
They probably could. Yeah. They're getting about maybe up to $600 a month for what they call spending money. It's that's not bad, but it's not great.
Not 700,000.
No. Be real. There is one player making that money in hockey and no one else. No one else will be given that money in hockey because nobody has that money. I was looking at the budgets. I think college programs are given about $20 million for NIL money. How much of that do you think is going to hockey? Like 2%.
A fraction of that,
A fraction, right? The other programs that actually make money are getting the NIL money. And Penn State decided, yes, we are going to commit to getting a hockey program. They added Jackson Smith. They added Lev Katzen. They added Luke Misa. Those are going to be, big stars there. And they spent the money to get that, along with, Gavin McKenna, of course. The other programs aren't getting that.
No, that's true.
They're getting 500,000 max, and that's what who was it? Michigan. Michigan was offering McKenna, I think, 300,000 because that was like most of their budget, probably.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we'll give you this. This is what we got, because they're investing in football. That's where their money is. So, like, I don't know. I'm not worried about the WHL and the CHL. They'll be fine. It's an interesting thing, and I'm curious to see how this goes for the coming season.
It's going to be definitely an interesting story to follow, for sure. And not just McKenna, but all the guys that have gone to the NCAA now. It's going to be, yeah. So we'll talk about it. Sisters to follow. We'll keep everyone up to date as our episodes go. McKenna watch, everyone else that is in the NCAA as well. So stay tuned for that. All right. For the sake of time, since I thought this episode was, I've packed it full. So we're gonna start our underrated prospect series, but we're not going to go through the whole Atlantic Division. We're going to start with the Canadian teams in this division, and we'll finish it off on our next episode. But let's start with your team, Peter, the Maple Leafs. Underrated prospects, and these are the guys that, maybe it's not underrated to Maple Leafs fans, but to everyone else, or maybe even Maple Leafs fans. But I'll start with you, Peter. Who do you call the Maple Leafs' most underrated prospect at this point?
This is very tough because the Maple Leafs don't have a whole lot aside from Cowan and Danford. It's who falls in the line after that. It is interesting, the fact now, and I'm going to go with William Villeneuve for this one reason, because of the fact that with Topi Niemela signing in the SHL, he has kind of fallen out of favor in the organization, prompting him to go and sign overseas. But I do feel like Villeneuve has kind of vaulted him in the way that he's become more reliable, earning more minutes and earning more responsibilities than Niemela had all last season. And basically Villeneuve almost doubled his production from the previous year, where he had 25 points in his rookie and sophomore year. Follow that up with 40 this past season. Pretty significant jump. And even looking at his underlying metrics at ahltracker.com, a great website for the AHL, by the way. On for 80 goals for, 42 against, 65.6 goals for percentage when he's on the ice. That to me is a guy that's understanding the game a little bit more. He's mitigating the chances in the goals against. He's learning to be a factor offensively. I think I still want to see him shoot the puck a little bit more, but I feel like he's becoming he's still underrated in the fact that he's still kind of further down the depth chart. But I think with guys like Niemela not on the team next year, I think this is another perfect opportunity for him to gain that opportunity and prove to management and the staff that he's worth sticking around and getting that chance for the future. I don't know if he's going to be NHL ready in the near future, but he is a right-handed shot. He does have for a little bit more offensive upside and mobility, something the Maple Leafs could use.
Sure, and I know we've talked about him I believe on this show, not with Maple Leafs, but in his draft year as a guy that could potentially have some NHL upside. So, and yeah, that right-hand shot is a big thing. So we'll see how he develops. He is in the AHL now. Could get some call-ups depending on how the defense works out in Toronto. Probably, and we definitely won't make the team out of training camp, but could be one of the first call-ups for sure. All right, Dayton, what about you for the Maple Leafs? Who do you see as one of their most underrated prospects?
I definitely thought about doing William Villeneuve, so I'm glad I chose someone else.
There we go.
Yeah, he had a great season in the AHL last year, so I'm really excited to see kind of what he becomes, even though I cover the Senators, so I shouldn't readily admit that, but whatever. This is Prospect Corner. I went with Noah Chadwick, defenseman was the Lethbridge Hurricanes. He will be making his pro debut, kind of. He had one game, I believe, last season or 2 seasons ago. He is just a big, solid, steady left-handed shot defenseman who put up 53 points on the blue line. He's just a really good defender. He was the Hurricanes captain. He had 14 points in 16 playoff games. I really like watching him when he came to town, and I caught him once in Calgary, once in Lethbridge. He does everything right. He's a very smart, steady player, and he will make a team that he's on better. He's a good leader. He does all those little things that you need. The Maple Leafs have a good one in that one.
Mm-hmm. So 2 defensemen. I mean, the Maple Leafs have, I don't know, like you said, Peter, they're not the strongest prospect pool, but they do have some interesting guys that could potentially help them out in the future. And these 2 definitely are on the radar to be potentially that, and maybe surprising, not talked about as much as, of course, the Easton Cowans of the world, for sure. All right, moving to you, Dayton, the Ottawa Senators. I mean, you just did your prospect pyramid not that long ago. I think it was about a week ago. So or a couple weeks ago. Someone did. Someone did a prospect pyramid for the Senators.
Columbus, I believe. They stole my graphic for it.
Right. That's
even though I have nothing to do with the graphics. That's all our amazing graphic guy.
There we go.
So Vince.
For some reason, I remember reading something about prospects from you, but there is a lot. So take a look. I'm sure there's prospect stuff on. The prospect awards. There you go.
That I did. Yep.
There we go. So yes, he did. Dayton has his prospect awards you can take a look at. I knew I read a big, long prospect piece from you. That's why I was like, that's the one.
Yeah.
All right.
You can just say big, long piece from me. That's most of mine. I can't get under 2,000 words. I'm sorry.
So yeah, prospect awards. So take a look at that. So I don't know if this guy was on it. I don't think he was. But who is your most underrated in the system?
My most underrated is a new guy from the 2025 draft, and that is Bruno Idzan, one of the only Croatians to be in a NHL system, and I believe the first ever drafted. He is a winger who really jumped onto the scene with the Lincoln Stars last season, putting up 22 goals and 44 points in 36 games after coming over from a Croatian team, KHL Sisak. They're in the Alps HL, which spans, I think, 4 different countries that are surprisingly around the Alps. Also had 3 goals in 6 playoffs with the Lincoln Stars. And now he is off to the University of Wisconsin, where I believe he is joining another Senators. Yes. Blake Montgomery is headed over to the University of Wisconsin as well. I think there's just a lot of potential with Idzan. He has something that, like, he's got size, he's got speed, he's got skill, that the Senators have been really good at finding a lot of value, at least in the last couple of seasons here, a lot of value in these mid to late round picks. They take the risks that they need to. And he is an overager, I believe. Yeah, he was passed over last year. But he seems to be doing everything right and has a good path forward, very similar to some of the other guys that we've seen pass through the Senator system, like Montgomery, who had a huge breakout season after getting drafted.
Sure. And I mean, later round picks, like we've said, they don't always hit, but they're good swings to take. And we know how many of these guys become impact players, even though they're not drafted really high. He might not be an impact player, but even if he's just a third, fourth, a depth guy, I mean, that's still, you make the NHL, that's still a good thing. You need all these guys to have a successful team for sure. All right, Peter, what about you for the Senators? Who do you have tagged as their most underrated?
Speaking of Blake Montgomery, I am not going to mention him, but I do think that he is a name to watch. I am going to pick the player that was selected before him in the 24 draft by the Ottawa Senators at 112th overall. That's Javon Moore. If you haven't read Marshag's draft profile of his, I'd recommend it, because this was an interesting profile even last year, where this is a player that has a lot of upside. He's got the size, he's got the speed and the quick hands in tight. He's got amazing play driving skills, but the biggest question mark is the consistency factor and his ability to play it safe at times. And when he does, he's not as dominant. But when he's on top of his game, he is going to be a dominant force out there. And he's got the skill set that really could translate to the next level. This is a guy that kind of fits their system of how they want to be built in terms of playing with that intensity and drive where they're driving the middle of the ice. And this is a guy that could power his way through with that. Decent season in the USHL with 39 points in 56 games, off to the University of Minnesota. So that's, a pretty good development program, as we've seen with some names in the past, joining guys like, LJ Moody, Brody Ziemer, Beckett Hendrickson, list goes on and on. Good chance for him to take another step forward because he did look good in the USHL. Again, consistency factor is just the one thing he needs to work on.
Yeah, I know we did talk about him during his draft year, of course, too. And I know he definitely has some upside. And like you said, with reading the prospect profile that Mark did, he was highly thought of. So, I mean, we'll see what his future is in the Senators organization. Like you said, they're like the Maple Leafs too. I mean, they don't have a lot of high-end guys, except for, the guys like Yakimchuk and guys like that. But they do have some interesting guys in the later rounds that they've drafted lately and could potentially be something in the future for sure. And Javon Moore is definitely one of them. All right, let's finish with the Montreal Canadiens. Very strong prospect pool. And they've got a couple guys that I know we talked about. And Dayton, the first one, we definitely talked about on probably a few times as being a guy that probably should have been drafted where he was. So who is your most underrated for Montreal?
Yeah, Peter briefly mentioned him earlier, but LJ Mooney is my underrated Montreal Canadiens prospect. If he is still in fact underrated.
Yeah.
A lot of people were sharing his highlight reel on Twitter after he was selected in the 4th round, I believe. Yeah. I personally thought he could have gone in the 40s. Yeah. Not the 4th. He was one of the best players out of the USA under 18s, I thought. Him and William Moore and Jack Murtagh were kind of like that cohort of just highly skilled players. And sure, the NTDP didn't have the strongest team last season, but they still had several first-round picks or potential first-round picks. Mooney ended up scoring 51 points in 51 games with the national team development program, then went over and then in the USHL put up another point per game performance with 28 in 26 games. At the USA under 18s, he was also over a point per game with 11 points in 7 games. This guy knows how to score. He also is incredibly fast. Everything that he does is like really dynamic and really exciting. And he's 5'7". That's why he's the 4th round pick. But it's not like he gets pushed around at 5'7". He looks like he can handle himself. So it will be interesting to see how he manages at the University of Minnesota, like Peter said. But yeah, there is a highly, highly skilled player here. It's almost like they got their second Lane Hudson, but he's on forward, which thanks Montreal. Really, you have to win again.
Yeah.
He's underrated for now. Don't expect him to stay underrated for long.
No. I agree. And he looked really good at development camp too, from what the reports I saw for Montreal too. So yeah, I think he's going to end up being another steal in this draft. And another really good undersized guy for the Canadiens, joining Cole Caulfield and Lane Hudson as the trio there. So, I like Mooney too. All right, Peter, let's finish it off. Montreal's most underrated for you.
So here's the thing. I was going to pick Hayden Papanicas and Bryce Pickford, but you could go read my draft profile on Hayden Papanicas. I'm very high on him. Bryce Pickford, it was a good swing, but I am extremely surprised that Carlos Handel fell to his 6th round. And I'm again kind of like LJ Mooney, surprising everybody with the skill set and everything as a 4th rounder. I'm surprised that he was still on the board and Montreal just basically stole him. Again, he kind of fallen a little bit for me. I always thought of him as a third rounder, but he did go to the fourth round for me. So I kind of thought he would have gone at least maybe 2-3 rounds a little bit higher, even if it was a late third or early fourth, depending on where they were picking. But he's just so silky smooth as a skater. He's got great upside as a puck mover. He's got the offensive awareness, the power play skill, or the ability to run a power play and quarterback that. Great deception on the back end as well. And I just feel like that kind of a player should not have been in the sixth round.
Yeah.
And you know what? Again, we talk about how great their prospect system is. Adding that kind of player that far down really shows their scouting department on how great they are. So I really thought that this is a player. I kind of feel like this is like Dayton with LJ Mooney, where he's underrated but not for long.
Yeah,
Hondel's going to be underrated but not for long, considering how the Montreal Canadiens are still pretty deep prospect wise. So for me at the moment, he is underrated, but it won't be long because of the skill set, because of the speed, the awareness, and just the overall two-way acumen that he possesses on both sides of the puck.
Yeah, the Canadiens have a pretty good scouting department for getting these guys later, or just teams are just keep bypassing them for some reason. And the Canadiens are like, sure, we'll take those guy right here. I think these two definitely are going to be interesting to watch, and probably won't be underrated, especially Mooney, and Handel is definitely one of those guys too. So great draft. Another great draft class in the later rounds for the Canadiens. Of course, up in they traded to get Noah Dobson, used their first round picks as well to make their team better this time. But they did make some good picks in the later rounds to make up for not having those first round picks. So definitely another good draft for Montreal. All right, that's another episode of Prospect Corner. We'll finish off our underrated for the Atlantic Division next episode. But thanks, Dayton. Thanks, Peter, for coming on, and of course, talking prospects as we always do here, even in the off season when there's nothing happening game wise. But we do have the Hlinka Gretzky is coming up quick.
Oh yeah.
So
camp rosters are already being announced.
So we will have that to talk about very soon. So we'll dedicate an episode to that for sure. But make sure to check out everything at thehogbears.com. We still got prospect content, lots of coverage for all the teams. All the top 10 lists are rolling out as everyone kind of updates those. And of course, prospect pyramids as well. Dayton does not have one out there yet, but even though I thought he did, but it is coming. So we will have a lot of stuff coming up for prospects. I know, Peter, you wrote one about the Maple Leafs as well. So
we'll be coming out soon. Working on that right now because
something about prospects. I know that.
Yeah. A little difficult because of how weak the Maple Leafs are prospect wise, but in the works right now. Doing my best.
All right. Well, yeah. So lots of fun stuff to come and already out there. So take a look at all that. Of course, our Substack and any other YouTube videos we've got out coming as well. But until our next episode, we'll see you next time.